Can hear us. I see you're typing in the conversation window. So this Friday, Marilyn Barger won't be able to join us, so she's asked me to host the Mechatronics Community Exchange, and I can share my screen and give you all a kind of a short agenda. So let's see if it will allow me to share my screen here. Can y'all see anything of my screen?
Yes, I can see it says you're presenting.
But it's not giving us any information.
I see it now, Dan.
The agenda. Good morning.
Excellent. So the agenda for today, we should do welcome and introduction, so we know everyone on the conference call. There's an update with the Siemens certification, and if anyone has any other information about certifications regarding mechatronics, we could talk about it there. And then today's real discussion is just about student projects, and have a roundtable discussion on what projects you might be doing that we might be able to implement in our mechatronics programs, and schedule topics for the spring term, what the dates need to be and what topics everyone would like to cover. And we'll put those dates on the Mechatronics Community Exchange website. And then anything else anyone has to discuss, and hopefully we'll be done promptly at 12 o'clock. How's that sound to everyone?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, Dan.
So let's go first with introductions. I'll start off, and then we'll try to not talk over each other, but you know how these Skype meetings work. So I'm Dan Horine. I'm the program head of mechatronics at Virginia Western in Roanoke, Virginia, and our program has been around for about 10 years. Enrollment numbers in the past 2 years, I think because of the NSF grant, we've gone from 43 to 141 in our mechatronics program. Who wants to go next?
This is Ed Bass. I'm Hagerstown Community College, working on the development of our new mechatronics, actually advanced manufacturing program, and the grant was awarded in the end of 15, so we're approaching the end here, but probably going to ask for a 6-month extension. We have had a heck of a hard time recruiting, but the program is now about 20 students. That's it for now.
Congratulations.
I can go, Dan. Gary Morgan, College of Lake County. We're about 40 miles north of Chicago. I'm working with Margie Porter on an NSF ATE grant we received a year ago. And we have a number of deliverables in there, but we're working on the creation of an associate degree. We're working on some dual credit pathways, as well as some pathways with Project Lead the Way, digital electronics course. We're doing some professional development for high school faculty, and we're working with 2 other partners, Florida State College in Jacksonville and Anne Arundel Community College outside of Baltimore. And I'm retired from the College of Lake County, and I'm just managing this NSF grant that we have.
Wonderful. And Ed, is your grant an NSF ATE project as well?
Yes, it is, Dan.
Okay, good. I need to skip over here. Let's see, Alexa, is there anything that you want to share about your program?
Alexa and me, I'm Danielle Orozco. We work with FLATE. Alexa is one of the students' assistants is helping us today.
Okay, I didn't
Yes.
know. And is there anyone else on the call?
It seems like it's just 5 of us.
Okay, that's great. So, Ed, have you attended one of the MCEs before?
Are you speaking of the NSF ATE annual programs, or when you say MCEs?
just
Are you
this
talking
monthly
about
conference call. Have you been on this Mechatronics Community Exchange conference call before?
Yeah, I presented. I've been on at least half a dozen times.
Oh, good. Well, I apologize for not remembering, but we're glad that you're continuing.
No problem.
This came about because I was trying to start a fab lab, and someone already had a fab lab and they wanted to start a mechatronics program. So that's the whole purpose of this monthly conference call, is just to share ideas. And Ed, since you have been on there, and Gary, you too, I've got some feelings as to why the participation in this community exchange is dwindling. But does anybody else have any ideas of what we could do, maybe why it's dwindled and what we could do to bring it back up to having some more participation?
Well, that's a good question, Dan, because I think it's very valuable, particularly from a faculty perspective. And I'm not, I thought maybe it was the time, we had it later on Friday last year, and we decided to move it up. I thought that might help as far as availability for faculty in that. But I'm not quite sure why, but I do think it's very valuable.
Ed, do you have any gut feeling on that?
I'll tell you the only impression I had for this meeting, and otherwise I can't even imagine. But for this meeting, I didn't know the agenda until I saw it just now. Is that because I've been inattentive, or is it?
No. We didn't do the agenda, and I'll tell you kind of where I'm coming from. I think Gary and I were talking, and it was very flexible and not rigid and not always a specific agenda. I feel like this has become too rigid and isn't convenient for everyone to kind of develop a formal presentation. It really should just be where we get on the Skype call and talk about what's really concerning us at the time and see if we can come up with solutions. I kind of think it does better if it flows a little bit freeform and a little less structured. But Ed, maybe you disagree and feel like maybe because there isn't an agenda, it could be an issue.
I think it's and or. I mean, and both. Like, if we list agenda topics as suggested agenda topics, then they don't have to dominate the meeting. I think we would call for some topics at the beginning, in addition to the ones that were suggested, and
okay,
go from there, and decide based on urgency of whoever's needs are brought forth that we then prioritize them by that need.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That is a great idea. So we'll take that into account for the next month's meeting. We'll send out a tentative agenda with suggested meeting topics and then start the meeting. So as looking at the agenda that we have currently today, are there any topics that anybody would like to add?
I would like, Dan, if I could just have a few minutes to talk about what we're doing with Project Lead the Way curriculum in high schools.
That would be wonderful. So Gary, in Virginia, there's been some Project Lead the Way schools. And when I was in sales, of course, we were kind of against the Project Lead the Way approach. But now that I've been in education for a decade, I would almost chop off my right arm to get some high schools who are doing Project Lead the Way, because that would really prepare them for what we're doing. So I think that sounds good. Ed, do you have any schools that are Project Lead the Way feeder programs?
Embarrassed to say I don't know, and that probably means that we don't in the area here.
Mm-hmm.
But just yesterday, speaking with a woman from the Frederick County, Maryland school district, saying that they want to begin some work in high school with robotics, and she was looking for ideas, and she was going to come visit and see our course on robotics. So at least there's a renewed interest. I see it not only from that county, but also here Washington County, which is actually the county we are located at, and they have come and attended our advisory committee meetings. So they're starting. That's a really good sign, because we've been, and industry has been complaining that, that the schools are just selling the 4-year degree idea as the next step for all their students.
Yes, we're all fighting that. Well, so I'm going to put the Project Lead the Way heading under like feeder programs and how important it is to get the right students. I'll just share with the group that the first year I started teaching, got 9 students from a school system to start. We have a regional academy. So they come to the community college in 11th or 12th grade and start their career studies in mechatronics. I got 9 kids who could do calculus, but very few of them could read a ruler.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll add to maybe some of the discussion today is I attended a conference with Maryland up in Baltimore 3 weekends ago called Needed Math, really focusing on industry saying what math do they actually need for an entry-level technician. So let me start off with the Siemens update. When we'll do the project discussion, then we'll add the Project Lead the Way, probably midway, Gary, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Dan.
So are either one of you all offering the mechatronics certification by Siemens?
Yes, yeah, we are, Dan, at CL's College of Lake County, and Anne Arundel is as well. And we had a big discussion yesterday in our conference call because of the recent changes, in certification cost and that. We had a big discussion about the value that certification is bringing to us now, as it relates to the cost. And
I hear you loud and clear.
$5,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but for some smaller colleges, that's significant.
Right. So, Ed, the certification for mechatronics by Siemens requires an institution to get 2 faculty credentialed, and per faculty, it's $7,500 for the training. And then there's an annual fee to continue your mechatronics program to be $5,000 a year.
Wow. Well, I'm taking a different tact, and I've approached my advisory committee with this, and they seem to like it. Have you guys looked at the PMMI mechatronics certification?
We have.
What is wrong with that approach?
I'm going to give you my personal opinion, and please don't take it as like the rule or whatever, but it's when I came to teach mechatronics, we had a sim cell, an example of mechatronic system, and I could turn it on, I could dog and pony show all day, but I couldn't teach with it. The real value for me when I went to the Siemens training was learning how to teach using the systems approach and relevance first and how to actually teach with that sim cell. The certifications, I feel like, are fairly similar. You could break down level 1 of PMMI to look like the Siemens Mechatronics level 1. There are 4 courses.
Yeah.
The difference in the certification cost is $50 a certification for PMMI, so $200 for the 4, and with Siemens it's $150. So they're almost the same cost, $50 difference. To me, the difference is faculty need some type of professional development to learn how to teach troubleshooting and problem solving. Some faculty think that you either have the knack or you don't from a student perspective, and I don't really subscribe to that. I think the military teaches quite a bit of troubleshooting every day to people who probably didn't have the knack.
Right.
I think we can do it too. I will share with you that I used to be an outboard mechanic, so if an outboard engine didn't work, it was either compression, spark, or fuel. So I was taking a system and breaking it down into subsystems.
Yeah.
What Siemens teaches is you take any system and you break it into mass flow, energy flow, and information flow.
All right.
Helps teach that student how to troubleshoot and not be a parts changer.
All right.
Ed, honestly, I think the PMMI certifications, the test itself and the rigorousness is probably as good as Siemens. But the question is, what are the resources that help the instructor prepare for those certifications? Because we don't want to have instructors that are just teaching to the test. We really want them to be problem solvers and troubleshooters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear you. But why does the choice of training for the faculty tie you to the certification via, um, gosh, I forgot the process you guys are subscribed to. The one you've chosen. Why
The
is that?
Siemens approach.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily. I mean, I could have gone through the training and chosen PMMI as my certification body,
Yeah.
and I may do that. I'll share with everyone in this group that it's concerning to our college as well, the cost increasing, and the real benefit is the name recognition of Siemens.
Yeah, I have to admit, PMMI, if that someone asked, I'd be embarrassed to say, well, it's the packaging manufacturing. But, you know.
And I know, I totally understand. And packaging is just one facet of mechatronics. It's not logistics, it's not medical, it's not aerospace. So how could it really be that comprehensive of mechatronics?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a problem. But and by the way, Honeywell did, no wait, it was Siemens, did give a training that one of our faculty went to, and because he was tagging along to one that had already been set up on site at another college, he was not having to pay for it. But had he paid for it, yeah, it would have been a problem for us, except for the grant that we had.
Right. So I think that it's going to become a greater issue to Siemens. I think that in this day and age, when all of our budgets are shrinking and we're having to do more with less, they are becoming cost prohibitive. So, like to work with this mechatronics community exchange in the next 3 to 5 years to come up with a solution for this.
Well, Dan, we talked about it because we're still committed to Siemens at College of Lake County. Because we see all those benefits that you referenced. Where our conversations have kind of gone is, and we're kind of guilty of this as well, but are there additional things that Siemens can do for us as being a certified institution other than the ability to be able to administer the certification test? Are there other things we can ask of them for their help?
Right. And I think getting out of the HR division of Siemens and into the digital factory division will really connect us more to their industry partners is what we really need. Because I foresee if we get access to their customer database of who's using their product, that maybe we can develop stronger relationships with those industry partners and they can help subsidize the cost of keeping the Siemens certification.
Yeah. But again, we haven't pursued that and we haven't asked specifically for help from Siemens. So, we're kind of guilty of that. But I think if we could see a greater return on the investment from a college perspective, I think the $5,000 would be doable if we could get more out of it.
I totally agree. And I've asked, and I haven't received that much support. We've been a partner school for 7 years now, and I bet you this college has invested quite a bit of money. And I'll let everyone know we are starting the process to fill in for where Motlow let go.
Okay.
I wrote a budget amendment last spring for $310,000 that was approved. 180 of it goes to a high school to start a mechatronics program, and the other 130 goes to us. So I've hired a new faculty member in mechatronics. He's going to level 1 training in spring break, level 2 training in the summer, and then in the fall we'll both be in Germany going to the instructor certification training. So hopefully we'll be up by the end of 2018 as a certified instructor training center so that if people want to send their instructors to training, they don't have to send them to Germany.
Yeah, that's great news, Dan. I'm really glad to hear that.
We're doing that simply because some of these grants don't provide for overseas travel, so you have to have professional development here.
Yeah.
But no, Ed, just know that in my heart, I totally understand it's getting cost prohibitive. Gary and I have no choice because we have an investment. We really need to continue leveraging that as long as possible. But I'm very interested in developing a more sustainable approach long term. And I'll share this with everyone. We are going to pursue an NSF proposal to do exactly what I said, to develop a mechatronic certification that is vendor neutral, that is more driven by industry, um, and try to figure out a way maybe where they come through our mechatronics program and then they could articulate to a 4-year university, get their pedagogy on how to become a teacher. And we're kind of approaching it from the area of creating high school tech ed teachers and then community college mechatronics faculty, because we know there's a huge need for that.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Doug Lavin here.
Doug.
How you doing?
Great. How are you? Glad you made it. I didn't see that you joined. Sorry.
Yeah, I joined about 3 minutes in, but I've been following this, and as you know, I went over to Germany and did the level 2 training and came back with every aspect that we were going to have that as our part of our program here, and then administration kind of shot it down because of just what you're talking about with the cost. And the state looks at us here in Minnesota pretty aggressively about how much it takes to run a program. They call that being in the band. And if it costs too much for these types of things, these maintenance fees and those kinds of things, it just works against you. So I was kind of met with from administration that we weren't going to do that. And then along comes this TAC grant that we got from the DOL, and we've got this advanced manufacturing course now that's kind of been dovetailed into welding and our maintenance, or our SIM program, our computer integrated machining and mechatronics, and we're doing the MSSC test that has kind of been woven into that. And right now that's where we're at, but I certainly know that, you know, for this community we need to figure out something that's kind of a standard that makes sense, I think, to all of us. So we're telling our industry partners kind of a common story.
Right. And that's been a big frustration for me. Is I had a general manager say, look, and it's an optical company, you know, I would like Dan to have an optics class, and Plastics One would like Dan to have an injection molding class, and Matulsa would like to have a robotic welding class. But building consensus, getting industry to understand that we can't be everything to everyone, but we can be the common denominator of the, you know, let's work together, let's define that common skill set, the common core of technical skills that you need, and that's what we can deliver. That to me is the power of a mechatronics program, because it is so broad in scope. But building consensus to get industry to agree takes a lot of time and effort.
Oh, I agree, definitely.
Doug, could I hear more from you about the MSSC certification? How far into that are you? What's required to do that?
Well, I just, you know, I've been busy doing other things with finishing up a NSF grant, and we're dealing with some really good influx of students, so we're blessed here. But I just took my certifications. I tested out of those because they want all the instructors to have that, and so I took these, and I kind of agree with some of the discussion. Some of these standards or some of these testing places want you just to kind of get the certifications and test to it, and you kind of lose scope of, you know, what maybe the Siemens approach is, or even maybe your approach in the classroom. But NOCTI has a role in this. I see Dan is updating, so I think NOCTI belongs on that list as well. But the MSSC group out of Washington, it's kind of like PMMI. I mean, you say this to industry partners, and they kind of cock their head and say, well, which flavor is this of the month, you know, or which one are these guys following? And you're right about the packaging industry, but, you know, Siemens, people kind of understand that. I believe if Rockwell had one, that would be very largely accepted in the United States. But the MSSC is just basically, they've got, I don't know how much you know about them, but they just basically have this testing, and they're industry driven, and they have they've been around for a while. So they're the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, and it's a nonprofit, and they put together these certifications for different technician levels, and you can take them in safety, you can take them in quality, production, maintenance. So if you get all these and you get this little patch and you go out to an interview, supposedly industry partners will look at that and say, oh, okay, you've got this MSSE patch. I know that you've been through this gamut of quality, safety, and so forth and so on. We've also introduced into this, because we think it's kind of anemic, we've brought in OSHA 10 into the whole thing to say, maybe that jacks it up a little bit and gives it a little bit more clout, that industry partners might understand what that means. So,
right. Does that help, Ed, with the MSSC?
I think so.
Go to their website. Just go to mmscusa.org and you can learn more about them. I'm by no means endorsing this. I just know that through our TAC grant from the DOL, this was something that was written into it, and we had to just kind of follow that at the school here. So that's why. So,
just comparing that to Siemens, are you required to go and train with MSSC or NACTI?
Not at all. It's not the rigor that's in the Siemens approach. Matter of fact, I don't mean this. I'm not giving a commercial, or I'm not bad mouthing, but a lot of instructors choose to use Tooling U, which basically makes it then online with this MSSC. You can teach it that way as well, because there's a lot of things that are in parallel with what MSSC is teaching or what they're offering for their certification. So some instructors at some schools just turn the students loose on Tooling U, and you can imagine the feedback on that. They don't get a lot of FaceTime with the instructor and so forth and so on. So it's a big difference knowing what I learned in Germany, in Berlin, from Siemens for those two levels. And Dan has it right. I mean, when he talked about the outboard stuff, that's exactly how they break it down, and it is a good method of teaching. They actually even teach you how to write a test, which is something that, or test questions, which is something that's overlooked. But this is just a canned package that you deliver. There's books on it. You can buy textbooks, and then you just teach to that, and then hopefully the students pass the certification. In our program, we just use it as basically a writer. It's there. We had to inject it into the program. All of our students have to be certified. But what we teach in our mechatronics classroom, really, we hold a little more weight to that than this certification. But that's that was kind of beyond our control. So, and before that, I'll keep rambling on here. We were really strongly looking at NIMS, because the Siemens thing was kind of off the table because of our current administration, because of cost. So
I see a lot of people kind of leaning towards NIMS. We have a high school teacher. I sent 5 of my high school teachers to Motlow State to get Siemens Level 1 certified. And because of the cost of the Siemens certification, I think they're going to use the NACTI certification instead of Siemens at the high school.
Yep.
So I'm going to put that on a scheduled topics for spring to talk about certifications in greater detail. I strongly feel that the certifications we're not going to get away from, that everywhere in the U.S. is going to require us to align to certifications. And I totally agree. The Siemens certifications has some strengths. It has some huge costs, kind of, that aren't strengths, and PMMI compared to MSSC, we really need to look at that in greater detail.
Yep, I agree.
So just in the essence of time, I think we should maybe move into some project discussions. Ed, do you have any other questions about MSSC or the certifications for today?
Thank you for asking. I was hoping to hear how much it costs students to do that, and is it a multi-part test or all in one?
Good.
You hear that, Doug?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is there information about the cost for testing on MSSC?
Yeah, just go to their website, And again, the reason I don't have all those answers, but I can find them out and I can get them to Dan, because we're working under this grant and everything is kind of picked up. But right now, from what I understand, the students have the ability to test out, because we have a lot of industry people that obviously can test out of, all these topics, safety, quality, and so forth. But I think there's like a $35 test out that they have to take, and then if they don't get it, they have to wait like 6 months or something like that. But right now it's included in our tuition for them to go through and get this certification. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Great. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, student projects, and just a discussion and round table. I'm going to give kudos to Doug real quick. We have implemented Doug's building of the PLC trainer workshop now for 2 years consecutively. And I've had students go on an interview for their internship, take their PLC trainer with them. And this was to Coca-Cola bottling. And the student not only got an internship, but got full-time employment and has come to see me. He's just bought his first house and married. And so, Doug, I just want to thank you 10 times over for sharing that project with us. It has changed the way that we teach PLCs. And the next step I'm doing is on the MCE website, there's the college, and forgive me for not remembering the college, but they had a high school teacher develop an output of a PLC trainer where you're basically putting Skittles into little pucks. And
Yeah, that's our project, Dan, at our grant.
wonderful, Gary. Well, we're going to implement that this semester. I had $20,000 in that budget amendment for what I called active learning labs. And I'm building a variable frequency drive PLC trainer with an HMI, 5 of those. We're going to kind of initiate on our own, and we'll be able to share that with the group when we get done. But I'm also going to adapt your PLC trainer for the high schools. I've got one student who needed the PLC class, so I'm running basically like a virtual PLC class where we work on our own. And come to find out, he already had a PLC class, so I just tasked him with building that trainer for me this spring semester.
Nice.
So I'll let you know how that goes. He's got the bill of materials and everything. But Gary, thank you so much. That instructor did a phenomenal job documenting what he did on that PLC project.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you've seen it, Dan, but he's completed now some kind of a lab curriculum manual for use with that trainer that you referenced with the Skittles and that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done some really good work. Now, he's just on the first phase of it because we have a couple more years in this grant, but he's got some really good curriculum materials he developed as well.
He sent them to all of us, and then I've downloaded what I'll tell you. What I've also used is he's documented this in SolidWorks so well that I use it as kind of leverage with my college students. If a high school student can design this trainer and document it this well, the least you can do is label your daggone IO.
Yeah, or put a wire number on.
Right. So I just thought everybody could kind of get a kick out of that. But I'm going to open it up now. Are there other student projects that you all are doing that you feel like you'd like to share with the mechatronics community?
Something we're doing, Dan, that has worked really well on kind of this systems level Siemens approach. We have a rather large conveyor in our lab, and we've mounted a number of sensors on that lab, and then we give students a design problem on a specific control that we want them to design it to perform. Maybe it's counting objects, and after a certain number of count, a robot comes over and it begins to unload the conveyor. And then they have to take just the bare sensors and all the bare hardware, and they have to put it together in a systems level control in order to perform that control. And then once they get it up and running, we go in and put a couple of faults into the control circuit, and then they have to identify the fault and correct it. But it really it really has worked well for us in bridging that gap between learning about a PLC and learning about a sensor, and then actually using it in a actual conveyor application. And it works really well for us.
How much do you think that conveyor cost?
I don't know what the conveyor cost us. You know, it's a large conveyor. It must be, you know, 10 or 12, maybe 15 feet long by about 5 or 6 feet wide, and it's just set up in an oval configuration. But it really opened up their eyes when they had to, you know, actually wire sensors into the PLC. Are they syncing? Are they sourcing? Are they 2-wire? Are they 3-wire? You know, how do I wire all this stuff? We talk about that in class, but when you actually give them the sensors and say, now go do it, it really, the light bulb really went off.
And that's very similar to Doug's PLC build project. It's amazing. I make them come up with a schematic of how they're going to build their PLC, and they have a hard time following their own schematic when they're actually wiring it. So I know exactly what you're saying, bridging that gap between working on a trainer that's already built and actually building it themselves, stripping the wires, making sure they hook it up. I had a student fry an easy port this year because he gave 120 volts AC to a 24 volt DC input.
Ooh.
Yep, we took out an HMI because a student did the same thing.
So that's great, Gary, that conveyor application. And I will share with the room, I've got a call from a college in New York, and I can't remember the university right offhand, but basically they bought a Festo sim cell and no one ever got trained on how to use it or how to teach with it, and it's just been sitting there. I think they robbed all the parts of the MPS stations, but they have a full conveyor system that they want to get rid of for like $5,000.
Wow.
It's a dean, and he's got egg on his face because they got this equipment and he wants to get rid of it. I'm going to try to get that point of contact to this group. Maybe they can negotiate some type of procurement. In Virginia, we're now shared services for the whole state, and buying something from someone else would probably be easier for me to sell drugs than it would be to make this happen.
Yeah, I understand.
We're unable to procure it, basically, is what I'm saying. So,
yep.
Any other projects? Gary, thank you for sharing that conveyor application. Is there any type of write-up or any type of...
Yeah, I think I have some, you know, I have what we give to the students in terms of what we expect and what's required that I could sure share.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Ed, do you have any student projects that you might want to share with the team?
You know, we do some project-based learning in our intro course, but it's you know, it's just very simple. So no, we're still developing stuff like that. I will say that our robotics class has started to develop some projects, and they're still pretty simple too, but we just ordered a lot of equipment from a German company that makes small scale manufacturing type work cells for training, and I'm hoping that we can start to do more project-based learning there on the mechatronics, you know, independent study type courses.
Is it Gunt or what company in Germany?
Oh, let me see here. This is waiting on the equipment now, but I have the requisition here. Of course, we looked at Festo Didactic and other stuff, but this was a surprise find, and the name did not ring a bell at first.
That's why I'm interested.
Yeah, you know, this my colleague comes from the viewpoint that the lab bolt stuff is, and others like that full-size stuff is just too pricey to do multiple units of, so we need to, you know, find scaled down stuff that, you know, essentially like Legos for mechatronics. and he thinks he's found it with this. We'll see.
So while you're looking that up, I agree with his philosophy. I think there's sometimes no substitute for the real size and the real thing, but we have no choice budgetarily to find of other ways to get the point across to our students. So we bought 30 personal CNC machines from a company in California called The Other Mill, and I did present on this one time at MCE. They've just let everyone know that company's been bought by and renamed called Bantam Tools, and the guy that started the MakerBot is the one that bought the other machine company.
Ah. So I took a minute to write that down because we also bought a mini CNC, a couple of them, and I don't know if they're as small as what you're talking about, because these are more like, you know, stuff you could use in a real machine shop for steel, you know, steel and aluminum and so on. But it sounds like maybe what you're talking about is desktop stuff.
It's desktop. The original cost was $2,200, and we negotiated $2,000 a piece, so I bought 30 of them. And now the cost is $3,200 each.
Whoa. Yeah, it sounds like you got it at the right time.
It's funny, they increased the motor. It goes up to 25,000 RPMs, the spindle motor. It's a little beefier. The one they put on there was just a brushless DC motor from a drone, and it just didn't have quite enough power to really do the machining you would want to do. But in the Siemens Level 2 certification, you have to teach microcontrollers and CNC machining in one course. So that was my solution, because there's an Arduino in the bottom of this CNC machine. So we're doing an autonomous robot competition this semester and CNC projects all together. I've never done this before, so I'll be able to report on it out at the end of the spring semester.
Good to hear. Let's keep going. I'm still looking for that requisition, unfortunately.
So in essence of time, we need to pick some dates for spring, of dates that work to everyone. We'll try to upload the resources that we talk about today to the Mechatronics Community Exchange webpage. But Gary, I wanted you to talk to us about Project Lead the Way and what you're doing, and how that may help your mechatronics program long term.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Actually, we got a couple of initiatives. One is developing dual credit pathways, you know, for our existing courses in the high school. But what piqued our interest in our district, we have, and I don't have the exact count, but we have probably over 1,000 students that are taking Project Lead the Way curriculum in high schools.
So can you define, for those of us that don't know what Project Lead the Way is, just give us a little background there.
Okay, basically there's five courses that are offered at the high school level, and this curriculum is considered pre-engineering. So it has the course that we have tied in with. They have a digital electronics course, which is one of the 5 required courses, and that course connected very nicely into our certificate and degree program, because we do cover digital for the Siemens certification.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing about it, as we looked at the Project Lead the Way digital electronics course, they certainly have standard digital discrete component devices in that course, but they also have an area for programmable technologies. So what we have done is created a course that meets the curriculum requirements for the high school Project Lead the Way in digital electronics. And then as we're teaching the digital electronics, we're going to integrate some basic programmable controllers into that course. So for example, if they're learning about basic and or NAND and NOR logic, and they're wiring up chips to perform that logic, we're going to step aside then in that course and show them how it's done on a mechatronics system, for example, using a PLC. So we've integrated PLCs into that Project Lead the Way course
You're closing the loop. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we have a high school in our district that we're going to be offering that now as dual credit next fall. But the instructor in the high school was really excited because he said that course is a little bit dry for students. They're wiring up chips and they're doing sequential logic and counters and things like that. And he thought this would be a real nice addition to show a real world application into the course, as well as meeting the requirements for the high schools. So we think this is going to open up another pathway into our mechatronics program.
So just want to echo two things. One, Project Lead the Way requires the faculty to go to professional development, correct?
Yes.
So the real benefit there is the high school faculties that you have teaching, you can depend on the quality of what they're teaching. It's not just the specifics of what they may or may not have done in industry or what they've seen in their life. They actually get some really good professional development. And then two, a lot of these electrical engineering programs or electronics classes, students are feeling like they're really dry and they can't figure out how they use it. So I think incorporating programming really does make it fun. I think that's a great idea. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Have you seen that, Doug or Ed, that you kind of losing students' interest in the concepts of Boolean logic?
Definitely. And I just covered it in our basic PLC class. I did Boolean algebra and logic and was showing gates and, doing a little bit of Karnoff mapping, because if that doesn't want to make you go outside and scream, I don't know what will. But but that's not what they're going to be doing on the job. And I tell them that. But I said, you will have those times where somebody will be on a napkin in a break room drawing this out with gates, or they're doing it with a Boolean expression. So I said, it's just nice to know it. So even though you're going to be doing something that's more electrical, you need to understand this. So, but yeah, I've heard that from the high school kids that are taking these Project Lead the Way classes, that are taking full digital and some of these others, where they come into our program then and say, well, this is nothing even close to what. And our program articulates what the local high schools on Project Lead the Way. So we try to help that local group, understand what we're doing here. But, we do take those credits in with those students that are putting that effort forward. So, but yeah, I've heard that, or I've heard that term dry as well.
Okay. Gary, that's good news. I wish I could get some of our high schools that would do Project Lead the Way. I think the barrier to entry is probably cost, because the word is that it's about $100,000 just to get started for Project Lead the Way. Is that what you found to be kind of an entry cost point also?
Yeah, we're fairly new in on this, Dan, so I don't know what the cost is associated with it, but the schools that have it in our district are rather large schools, and they may have 200-300 students enrolled in it.
Wow, that's great.
That's a huge population, and I think we're trying to kill two birds with one stone. We're trying to make that course more relevant for the high schools, and of course tie it into our program for those students wanting to continue.
And what I'm going to be working on is, let's say they go through Project Lead the Way and they get the Siemens Level 1 certification in high school, or they come to the college with that certification. I'm working with Kale on credit for prior learning, so that let's say they come through workforce and they get a quick training program and they get that Siemens certification, then I'll give them credit for 4 academic classes in our associate's degree in mechatronics, and they have a little bit more skin in the game to maybe continue to be a lifelong learner and complete my program of study instead of just going to work with a little bitty certification.
Yeah. And we should have this course tweaked here in the next couple of weeks. So if anybody on the call is interested in looking at doing something like this, I can sure share what we developed.
I'm interested.
It obviously has to meet Project Lead the Way requirements.
Right.
They have some pretty strict requirements on what needs to be taught, but there is flexibility in their curriculum for what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you. Ed, did you happen to find that company in Germany?
Yeah, I did. It's Fisher Technique, and it's relatively toy-like, but they have a huge variety of stuff. So we bought a conveyor belt system, a robot, a punching machine with conveyor, 2 machining stations, pneumatic processing center, and like a miscellaneous components package. And this was $3,000. So I'm not sure. I'm not endorsing it yet. We're testing it out.
That's great. That's the whole purpose of this discussion. Is we're all out here in our own island. Seems like reinventing the wheel by ourselves, and it really helps if we can share the trials and tribulations so that we all don't have to fall through those pitfalls, and we can be a little bit more efficient. So I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. All right. Hey, this is Doug. Our local high school, one of our local high schools here, their lab uses Fisher Technique on their control site, so that's interesting.
Okay, is that a tech school or just the high school?
It's just a high school with a mechatronics program, and they've got Fisher Technique, and it was I was quite frankly pretty impressed with it.
So maybe we'll promote this at the high school too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now a lot of our high schools are doing VEX, and that does serve to help students get into this, get interested in this stuff. So yeah, whatever it takes.
Awesome. Well, I'm just going to share a couple of the outcomes from the Needed Math Conference, and then I think we need to pick some dates for the rest of the spring semester, dates that work with everyone. So this Needed Math Conference was put on from Hofstra University and 2 PIs through NSF. They was for biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, and IT. For one weekend, we all convened in Baltimore, Maryland at an Embassy Suites and did nothing but focus on what math is needed for Friday night, Saturday, and all day Sunday. And Gerhardt was there. Celeste Carter was supposed to be, but I understand she is undergoing some surgery and may be having some health issues. I don't know if everyone knew that. But the outcome of it is that they want the technical programs to teach some of the math that's needed to maybe help our math faculty. The outcome was that maybe we won't be able to change how math faculty teach, but that we could teach some contextual math in our classes. They did say that Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, and Trig were what they considered needed math, but it wasn't at the depth that probably our math faculty teach it. They teach it way too far in depth without relevance. This isn't probably new to anyone on this call, but I just wanted to share that what I'm doing now is offering a 1-credit EGR class, 3-hour lab, where I'm doing their math homework with them and showing them how they're going to use the math.
We've been talking about doing exactly the same thing, Dan. We already did do that for years with our alternative energy program, and so now that model is probably going to get applied to in the advanced manufacturing program.
It took a little while for students to kind of embrace the course and get us a little while. I did steal a really good book from Chuck Paulson. It's called Math Anxiety Relief for Nearly Everyone. And I wish it had more sample problems, but I can share that book. I think Chuck won't mind me sharing the book. I use it just as a reference, but we're really focusing on retention. I don't know how your schools are doing as far as enrollment, but enrollment for the college is decreasing, and the college has decided that if we could retain the students that we already have, it's a lot less expensive than trying to recruit new students. Yeah. So my focus has really been on retaining the students that we do have.
And we have the same experience that math is one of the barriers that a lot of students don't seem able or willing to try to overcome. And so if we can get them past it, that would be huge too.
It would. And the way
Dan?
they're doing developmental math, right? If they're not ready for the math for our program, put them in front of a computer and good luck. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
No. Dan, are you able, and I think I know the answer to this, but are you able to give them any kind of a math credit towards the general education requirements?
No,
Yeah.
no. Our math has changed now. I have technical mathematics 1 and an applied statistics class as the 2 math classes in mechatronics. If they're transferring, they'll probably be above technical math, so they would take applied statistics and then pre-calculus with trigonometry if they're transferring.
Okay.
So my 1 credit EGR counts towards none of their math. That's why I made it 1 credit. I didn't want to make it this 3 credit class that's super expensive. It's 3. I still have 3 hours of contact a week, but I don't do much prep. I just come in and say, bring me your math homework. And there's some semesters I'll have developmental math students in there with a calc student, and that's really hard. Other than I take the calc student and say, you're going to help me with the developmental math students.
Yeah.
That works. All right. Well, in essence of time, we have about 4 minutes, so I think we need to pick the dates upcoming. Can you see my calendar? If I go to a month, is that visible to all?
Yes.
Looks scary, Dan.
Sorry. Well, the best thing I could pull up. So we're here February 2nd. Is there a date through March? Is there in March that works good for everyone? I know we're on spring break this week of the 5th through the 9th of March.
That's ours too.
Yeah.
So my thoughts were maybe the 16th.
Yeah, and I don't know when ours is, Dan. I'm wondering if we ought to not maybe push it out another week so we don't catch other colleges that are on break.
Okay, so the 23rd.
Yeah, I would think most colleges would be done with their break by then.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, I have I'm hosting this Mechatronic Skills USA competition for the state of Minnesota, but that's on Saturday. But I think I can make an hour call, so that'll be fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll do March 23rd, April. So I'm thinking maybe April. Our last day of classes is that last week of April, so maybe the 20th.
When is Easter? Do you know, Dan?
I don't. April 1st looks like on my calendar.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
right.
So we wouldn't be into Good Friday and the weekend then. So that's good.
Good Friday, I think, should be that 30th.
Okay.
Before. So I'm looking on my calendar. We're supposed to take a road trip to James Madison University on that 20th for talking about this teacher education. So the 20th may not work for me. Does the 27th work for everyone?
Yeah. Does
Okay.
for me.
I cannot speak on behalf of Marlene, but it seems like it's okay.
So I think that was Daniele telling us that she can't speak for Maryland, but she'll get back with her and let us know if that's okay. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then I think that will be it for spring semester. Just 2 more, March and April. And I'm going to give back control here and stop presenting. So it should go back to the screen. I hope that this format is a little bit more helpful to all, that we just kind of take some time and not have a specific, I know I'm kind of a little talking too much, but I love letting Ed and Gary and Doug, everybody share. Doug, do you think this is going to help us kind of bring back more people to the MCE?
I really do. And I just think you said it when people are bringing things up and you're going, oh, God, that's right. And I mean, I can't tell you how many websites I went out to with just hearing you guys talking in the background going, oh, there's an approach I didn't think about, or there's a possible supplier. So most definitely, if people understand what our mission is, I can't believe they wouldn't come on board.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder, Dan, if it would be helpful if if we, made some personal contacts with either some faculty in that had participated and are no longer participating, or new faculty, and maybe if we each reached out to one or two of our colleagues and talked about what we're trying to do and kind of invite them on a kind of a personal level, if that might help.
I think it will. I think that's how we got them there initially, and then I don't think we were meeting their needs. It was kind of like an extra thing to do, and to me, this is fun, learning from each other, and like Doug said, if my screen wasn't being shared, I would have been Googling all those sites also. Ed, did you have anything that you would like to share?
Thanks for asking, Dan. The only thing I would ask is, I think it was Gary maybe that talked about a skills challenge. I'm always looking for competitions. I think it's the way to bring out, incentive for students. So I'd like to hear more about that. I know it's Minnesota, but still.
Well, Skills USA is national, and you may have skills in your state, and the mechatronics competitions you could run there in your state. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug.
That's very correct. Yep, he's probably got a chapter right there. There's probably a director all set up.
Skills USA. I'll check it out. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, guys, it is 1 minute after 12, and ladies, sorry. I thoroughly enjoyed today. I hope you did too. And I believe Daniele did record this, so she'll be able to put it up on the MCE website.
Yes,
I'll try to type up the meeting notes and send it out to everyone. Probably will go out Monday or Tuesday of next week. And I hope you have a great weekend.
Dan, sorry, can you please confirm the dates, the next coming date before the meeting, so I pass this along to my. You say March 27th?
Yeah, March the 23rd, we said, and then April the 27th would be the next two dates of the MCE.
Okay, April. Okay, perfect.
Well, thank you, Dan, for your time.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to talk to everyone. Doug and Ed and Daniele, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.